Welcome to Journey to Wholeness, hosted by author and life coach Indiana Tuggle, where we help Christian women heal, achieve mental wellness, and spiritual growth so you can accomplish your goals and purpose.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Journey to Wholeness. I am your host, Indiana Tuggle. Since it's a new month, it's a new theme. For the month of April, we are talking about healing broken relationships. And I have my friend Felicia Ferrell in the house with me on tonight. And we are going to talk about defining, cultivating, and healing broken friendships. And this is a phenomenal subject because she and I collaborated one time on Facebook talking about friendships, and she was just bringing people in on the live, and we had such a good time. And she's continued the discussion on her platform, and I'm continuing the discussion on mine. So it's just really been an awesome discussion because we are living in a time where friendships is really we've been seeing a lot of stories where friendships are it's just not the same how we grew up. It's just how they define them, how they treat each other. We've seen so many things going on in the media where women have been on vacation with their friends, with their girlfriends, and don't come back home, don't make it back because something happens. We're seeing a lot of that going on today, and we're like, what is really going on with friendships? Why is it that people don't know how to define and cultivate really good friendships, and how come they don't know when a friendship is going to the left or it's going bad or things are not going right? Why is it that we don't know that? So before we get into it, I'm gonna allow Felicia to introduce herself.
Thank you so much, Indiana, for allowing me to be a guest on your show. My name is Felicia Ferrell. My husband likes to say Ferrell. I like to say Ferrell, okay? But, I'm just like a little bit extra. But I am a HR. I've been in HR for over 20 years, and I am the executive chick, the executive maven, and I just dropped my framework actually a couple of days ago. So I just dropped that information, and I am the coach now. I'm a transition coach, career coach. So I'm moving into that platform. And so I'm excited to be here. I help women that are over the age of 40 who are that have the knowledge, and they just need to know how to turn that knowledge into income. And so that's what I do, is I help those women to do that.
Awesome. So before we get into it, our first question is, how would you personally define friendship, and how has that definition evolved over time?
I think that, back in the day, I think you would, define friendship as someone who is there for you during the hard times, someone that is loyal to you, someone that is going to be there for you, someone that has been through some of the rough patches, some of the good times, and that you consider that as a friend. But as it has evolved, I think that, I don't know, like maybe when you get in your 40s, things start to shift. People have families, they're tending into their families. They got grandkids now, all these different things. So the friendship kind of evolves into something else. It's not like you used to hang out every weekend, or you used to go places and shop and do all these things. It's more so, for me anyway, is going to, I may see this person once a month now, and so I think that's what it has evolved to, as far as friendship is concerned.
Yeah, I agree. When we were younger, friendship was so, I don't I don't know if it was easier, but it was less pressure, right? Because when you were kids, you could walk up on somebody on the playground and be like, "Hey, girl, you my friend," and y'all play for the rest of the day, while y'all on the playground. But now it's more of, you have to, and then even into high school and adolescence and elementary school and all of that, as you were becoming who you were to be, developing your personality, and all of that, you were attracted to people in your same, age group, in your same
Right.
grade. and you're going after the same thing. So you had common things. But as we get older, I think the definition has evolved to where friendships are not always going to be those that are have that all these years behind you anymore, right?
Right.
It's more of, because those friendships that you had growing up, those people have evolved. They're doing their own thing. They have their own families. They have their own careers. They're
Yeah.
doing it, and you may have grew apart because you no longer are connected anymore. But I think now we have to be more intentional,
Right.
about not just making friends, but nurturing those friendships. Because regardless of what we want to say, even if we say, I only have to, like you mentioned, seeing somebody once a month, which is true. We may only see our friends once a month, but I think we have to now be intentional about even making those acquaintances, or even going out and having fun and getting together with your girlfriends. You have to be intentional about that. I remember somebody making a joke about, man, I have to set a date with my friend now. I have to
Right.
put time on their calendar and things like that. And I think because now it requires so much effort, that now people are like adapting this no new friends mantra, because they just don't want to put in the effort. They don't want to put in the work. We want things to be easy for us now.
Absolutely. And I think that, a lot of times when you said intentional, I think that a lot of people don't want to, like you said, don't want to put in the work. But also what happens is a lot of people will say, hey, I'm the only one reaching out. I'm the only one that's reaching out. So then they adopt this no friends thing, new friends. I'm not going to be doing all of this reaching out and being intentional if it's just one-sided, so you want it to be reciprocal. You want it to be go both ways. Maybe one month you choose, the next month somebody else chooses, and you kind of, keep the same week, around the 15th or whatever, so that you can kind of be consistent in that, because it does make the other person feel like you're the only one. And I do understand that things come up, but you do have to be intentional in order to do that.
Mm-hmm. And just like you mentioned that, which brings me to the next question: what expectations should we bring into friendships? Because if somebody is saying, I'm the only one reaching out, my first question is, did the other person know that? That they were supposed to reach out to you a certain number of times, or weekly or daily or whatever it is? Where are these expectations? Are people really communicating their expectations?
I don't think that people are communicating their expectations. I think that, again, you mentioned, and I read this in Mel Robbins' book, when she did all the research. But basically, what's happened is that we're no longer in the same proximity. And you mentioned about being on the playground, going to high school. We all went to the same school. We all did all these things. But after you go to college and then you start to have your own family, then you kind of just move around. You go to different states, you do go to different cities, and you just have different things going on. But I think that that's where we have to get back to setting the expectations of this friendship. A lot of people are saying that they're willing to meet people, but they don't really communicate what they are needing in that particular friendship. Do you need to be called every day? And you hear it all the time now that we're in our 40s, hey, look, I'm the friend that I'm not going to be calling you every day. So if you need that type of friend, then I'm probably not the best one. And that's communicating that. And so at least you let that person know that you're not that person, that's not the type of friendship that you are needing. So just being able to communicate your expectations as well as your boundaries. And a lot of things that we need to do is start vetting friends. We don't do that near enough, just like we vet these relationships, whether it's a woman or a guy, you got to vet your friendships as well.
I think when it comes to expectations, I think we shouldn't have any, because, like you mentioned, vetting our friendships, vetting takes time.
Hmm.
And just like you wouldn't go into a relationship and meet a guy one day and give them the keys to your house the next, you shouldn't do that with friendship. You shouldn't expect to meet somebody and then all of a sudden we're like best friends, like we grew up together. We can't do that. So we have to have patience and we have to give people grace in order for it to evolve. And then we have to understand and ask ourselves, why are we seeking this friendship? Because really, in reality, what a lot of women are really saying, they don't really want a friendship. And let's be honest, you don't want a friendship. You don't want this person who is going to be, you know, at your beck and call, or that you have to talk to each and every day, that knows all the intimate details of your life and things like that, because that's really what happens over time if you really true friends. But what you really want is somebody that likes some of the things that you like, and that you can hang out with. Maybe you might want a girlfriend that you can travel with. Maybe you might want somebody that you can go brunch with. Maybe you might somebody, that you can go, go have drinks and listen to live music with. Maybe you want that, but be honest about that, because those friends not calling you every day. They may call you when it's a new hot spot done opened up. Hey girl, I just heard about this new brunch spot. You want to go? Or something like that. They may call you for that. But as far as and what are we talking about every day? It really depends on what you have going on in your life in the moment. Because I know me right now, my focus is my health, and it's also my business. So only thing I'm talking about is them two things. I'm either talking about losing weight, trying to lose weight, what type of diet I got on, and I'm talking about how I'm gonna market these books. That's all I'm talking about. So if you don't want to talk about that, I'm probably not gonna call you every day. Now I have business friends that me and her talk every day, whether it's chatting, we chatting in the group chat, or something like that, or we might pick up the phone and talk to each other. We talk every day. But my friends that I might hang out with once or twice a month, we might check in bi-weekly, once a month or something, like, hey girl, how you doing? Because I'm not a small talk person. Don't have me on no phone for no 3-4 hours talking about the weather and politics and what's going on in the White House. I don't be wanting no, so it's like we have, and to me, that's not, we have to call it what it is. That's an acquaintance.
Right.
Because we get together on special occasions.
Right. And I think that that's something that we do need to start having the conversation about, because you're right. We want all these friends, but the reality is that we don't have enough bandwidth to have these friends that we're talking about. You got separate, and then you got friends that don't get along with other friends. And then, it's just, like you said, it has evolved over the years. And now that we're over 40, it's just totally different. And you got to be able to accept the changes. Being able to notice that this person is an acquaintance. It doesn't matter that, you worked with them for years, you've been out to places. I had to learn the hard way that, I'm thinking that this person is my friend because we worked together for several years. We've been out. I've kept their kids. They kept mine. Like, I'm thinking that we're friends. They helped me out when I needed help, and the reality is that they weren't. They were not my friends. And that was a hard pill to swallow.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes you have to remember that even friendships have seasons, right? You're going to have seasons. There have been, on every job that I've been on, I've always met a close friend. While we're on the job, we are talking every day. We're going to lunch every day. We know each other's families. We're doing this and we're communicating. We're hanging out outside of work, things like that. But if that job happens to end,
baby, out of
and
sight,
we
out of
go our
mind.
separate ways, we ain't talking every day no more. Then we become, hey, we checking in once somebody, hey girl, what's going on? We need to catch up. Can we have dinner? We go lunch or something like that. We need to catch up. And that's cool. And we are both cool. Yeah. I have never seen so many people complaining about people not calling them. And I'm like, so why you didn't call though? If both of us, if you and I are friends, and I'm waiting on you to call me, and you waiting on me to call me to call you, we ain't never talking.
Right. And I think that's the thing, you, like we mentioned before, being able to know what is that friend's personality. You and I had talked on that Facebook post about the young lady who went to see her friend who had the baby, and she said that she was thinking that that was her friend, she said she reached out to her friend and she said, I don't let people that are not close to me to come to my house or see my baby. And she was shocked. She was literally shocked that she was not, she's like, I thought we were friends.
Mm-hmm.
And that is disheartening, to think that this person is your friend, especially, you've been going out and doing all these things and this person doesn't even think of you as that.
And which brings me to the next question, which is, what are some red flags that we need to look for? And I hate to use the term red flags because to me, when it comes to friends and people that you're just meeting and you're becoming acquaintance with and you're trying to, build that up, because friendship has to be tested. It takes time. It has to be tested. So I don't like to say red flags, but what are some things that you could actually see that would help you to know that this person is not going to be a long-term friendship? Like this may just be a mutual thing that we have,
Yeah.
but it is not going to have any depth, so to speak, because I think there's a difference.
Yeah, it is. It definitely is a difference. One thing that I've noticed, and I had to kind of shift my mindset because I didn't think that it was really a big deal. But what happens is people mask a lot of things. And so sometimes that jealousy and envy is kind of masked. And it's like you're thinking that, oh, that this is just who they are, or this is just how they are. But really and truly, they do not like you. They like being around you. Like they like the air of you. They like your presence and your aura, but they don't really like you. And so you have to really discern and have that discernment of that. And so when they start to, one thing that they start to do is they start to say, things that you can't accomplish. Oh, you gonna do that? Or, your little business, or you shouldn't go ahead and do that. And and sometimes it's so meticulously masked that you don't know, because usually they're giving you sound advice, right? And you're thinking, okay, this person may be giving me sound advice, but hidden up under there, and you won't find out until later, months later, years later, that there was really some kind of jealousy and envy that was there. Another red flag is that, like we talked about, is that when they're not available. When they're not available and you can't never get to them and you're reaching out and reaching out, that may not be that may be a red flag. They may not really like you. They may not want to hang out with you. So that may be something else that you want to consider and start to watch and make sure that you're watching that. And then, just being out on the lookout of what they say. Those little sly remarks, those little those little punches, side punches in the gut, they really do tell a tale, right? They really do tell how that person is really feeling about you, but you're dismissing it so quickly that you don't really pay attention to that. So those are about three that you can definitely keep an eye out on.
Yeah, I agree, especially when it comes to being supportive of your goals and aspirations. It doesn't mean that they have to be your cheerleader and be your amen corner for everything you do, because the Bible does say faithful are the wounds of a friend. So they're not supposed to like everything you do and just condone everything you do, but for the most part, they should be supportive, right? I always tell people, before you can criticize me, you're gonna have to learn to give me some sugar with your salt. You can't just be sprinkling salt and don't never, because if all you're doing is sprinkling salt, it's going in one ear out the other. I'm not listening to anything you say. But if you can learn how to encourage me as well as you criticize me, then I might listen to you, because then I might say you have my best interest and you are actually listening and you are actually trying to help me to become better and not just shooting down my goals and aspirations. So to me that's a big thing. And another thing is, you have to know what your core values are, right?
That's right.
And your core values, and then watch if they are always critical of that. So for me, I pay attention to how people treat others, because I'm a plus size woman. And while everybody ain't got to love my little fluffy self, but what you're not gonna do is criticize people that look like me all the time. If every time I see you or encounter you, or on social media, because social media is a great research tool. You hear
Yes,
me?
it is.
You
Yes,
know,
it is.
you can get access to somebody's profile, you will see a whole lot,
Right.
and social media is gonna snitch on you. Whatever you comment on watching, they gonna tell it to the
Right.
people who following you. So you can see a whole lot of stuff. So I just sit back and I observe a lot of things. So a lot of things, so that's my weight. I don't play about that. If you always criticizing people who look like me, we're not gonna be good friends. And then another thing for me is also my faith. I'm not a religious zealot at all, and I don't claim to be perfect, a perfect Christian, and I'm not trying to be perfect. I just want to share my love of God with people.
Right.
However, if somebody is always talking about the church,
Right.
talking about religion in a critical way, of
Right.
always being critical but never offering solutions, because we can have the conversation, there's nothing wrong with the conversation, but I'm not going to argue with you,
Right.
or something like that. So I always look at that. And then I also look at my, as a single woman, there are some things like my abstinence. I don't play with people who talk bad about that. Ain't nobody
Yeah.
gonna want. No, 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 no. This is not up for debate. We're not.
Right.
So I
Right.
always think about my core values and how people are really, really, truly, how they feel, how they voice their concerns about it. You can have a difference of opinion, but sometimes it's not what you say, it's how you say it. Are you speaking in a manner in which you are trying to say it in love?
Right.
Because I'm one of those people that I don't believe in, well, sometimes you got to give people tough love. No, no, no. Speak your truth, but always saying in love. You should not be aiming to just hurt people just by being nasty and calling it tough love. We don't play that kind of games. So that's some of the things that I look at is your core, you're at your core, the things that you believe in, the things that you love, the things that you support. Are y'all alike in those areas,
Right.
right? Or is there mutual respect? Because they don't have to. You ain't got to love my God, but you ain't got to talk about him either.
Right.
We ain't doing that,
Absolutely.
So it's about mutual respect. And sometimes, and when you meet people and you see those things, those are some things that you really need to look at. And then how they speak on, like you mentioned, the things you're trying to do, your own circle, because now some people can be manipulative and they might try to infiltrate your circle so that they can pour salt on everybody else. So I pay attention to people who gossip a lot.
Yes.
It's one thing to have fun and talk about stuff that we see on social media. But when you're talking about a real person and you
Right.
come to me with somebody telling me somebody else's business, baby, you're gonna tell mine quick too.
Yes,
So
you
I'm
are.
not we're not we're not having those type of discussions, and I'm gonna distance myself really, really, really quick.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So yeah, you brought up some good points because that core value is really one of the main things that we don't even talk about. We know we have them, but I don't think that it's a wide discussion. And a lot of times, a lot of people are not having these types of discussions. We're talking about what's these superstars that we don't even know. We're talking about all these other things that are really irrelevant, but to really have these core conversations is really important.
Yeah, and which gets into like our next question, which is, in a time when so many relationships are surface level or based on convenience, how can we actually cultivate authentic and godly friendships?
I think the way that we cultivate that friendship is being intentional. You mentioned it earlier. It goes without saying you have to be intentional if that's what you want. I think that you need to be careful about wanting so many friends because again, like I said, you don't have the bandwidth for it. But if you can get one or two close friends, and you cultivate that, you like their personality, you like their core values, you kind of mesh together, very well, and so you can cultivate that and you start to invite them out. You start to It's kind of like I said, it's kind of like relationships. You don't invite them over to your house. You start to meet them out. Hey, we were gonna go and hang out and go bowling or whatever we're going to go do. We're going to go have a couple of drinks, whatever it is, then you start to cultivate that relationship, and you don't give all your information out. You don't give all your information out. So you got to know when to cut it off, how much to say and what not to say. So it is very, very skillful. I had to learn the hard way because I'm a talker. I'm very, very transparent. I'm very open. I'm free giving, but I did not know that people just will use this information and turn it against you. So you do have to be careful about how much you're giving when you first cultivate that relationship.
Absolutely. I agree. And I'm the same way. I don't, it's really about how much time and effort that you have to put in it and what are you willing to do. In one of my journals, I think it's the Better Me, when I talk about, building a better you, one of those is nurturing your friendships, right? And I have people to do this exercise where you have to really analyze your people. Analyze the people that you spend your time with and ask yourself, are they bettering you? Are they helping pull out something better in you? And do you want to spend more time with it? If you want to spend more time with this person who is amazing in your sight, then reach out to them.
Right.
It's nothing wrong with sending a text. Hey girl, I miss you. Can we get together? What's your calendar look like? I do it all the time. Every month I would reach out to my people that I said I wanted to coach to keep nurturing relationships, and we've gone along. We used to work together, but now we don't. So now we got to schedule time. So I'll reach out and be like, hey, it's been a minute. We need to catch up. What's your schedule looking like?
Right.
Or something like that. And we can set up time. So you have to be willing. If it's worth it, and if that person is worth it, you have to be willing to do that. And I think another way that you cultivate authentic relationships is you have to learn to give people grace, and you have to have patience, because I'm finding that a lot of people don't have grace. They want whomever they're around to be just like them. You got to think like them. You got to act like them. And this other phrase that people are saying now, which I hate, it makes me cringe. I got to vet your energy. I'm matching energy. I got to see what your energy putting off. And I'm like, what the heck that mean? Because when they say that, whenever you see somebody say, "Ooh, I like your energy," it's because they watching a video of somebody who is the life of the party, and they is having fun, and they dancing and doing whatever they want to do in that moment. And I'm like, nobody is like that 24/7.
Right.
Absolutely. Life is lifing right now. So everybody is not going to be at this high energy level every time you see them, or because you want to put on for some people. You might go to the store and catch somebody that done had a bad day, so they might be dragging around the store. You gonna tell me, oh, your energy off, I can't fool with you.
Right.
Just say hello.
Right.
That's all you got to do is say hello. Now, if they shun you and be like, turn their nose up, but that's some different thing. But just to be saying your energy off, who are you?
That goes back to what this whole podcast is about, the journey to wellness, the journey to healing. Because when those people say those types of things, then that's clearly showing that they have not healed. They have some things that are underlined that they need to work on. You know what I mean? So there's some things there could be some things that they need to go back and revisit, go back and try to figure out, why do I feel the need to match this energy? It comes down to really understanding who you are and why do you feel like you need to do that. So you really got to ask yourself those hard questions.
Right. And what are you trying to, most people, they look for a friend to be what they are not.
Yeah, to compensate.
Like I'm an introvert, so I want to be around this introvert because they gonna have fun all the time and I can live vicariously through them. Right. No, because in reality, once we get through hanging out and I go back home, baby, don't call me no more because you done drained me. So I need 2-3 weeks to recuperate because I got the rest from all this that you done just put out on me. So in reality, she gonna be like, you ain't no good friend because I'm drained. I'm pooped now. Right. I got to go back. I got to go home and recuperate, now. And so we'll be unequally yoked. So, because she'll be looking at me like, girl, you just too much. You just boring, or something like that. But in reality, I like being around you at the moment, because when we go out, I'm gonna have fun, but when we get through, baby girl, tone it down. Tone it down. So I can come back into my little happy place where I'm gonna be over here coloring and journaling all the doggone time, because that's
Right.
that's my
Right.
thing. So that's why I don't like the whole energy thing, because to me, you're trying to live vicariously through somebody, and they're being what you wish you could be, but you're not really accepting and embracing who you are.
Right.
So, because in a real friendship, a true friendship, they can be who they are and you can be who you are, and y'all gonna support each other, and y'all are gonna be right there with each other, because you see those people who one is an introvert, one is an extrovert, but let you come wrong at the introvert. You know what I'm saying? The extrovert is gonna be ready.
It's gonna come out. Ready.
It's coming out. Like, it's not what you gonna do.
Right.
So it's like we want to be, want people to be with us, or to love us, to be our friends for who we are, but at the same time, you want somebody to fake and pretend and act like everything is okay all the time, when in reality it's not. Every day is not a good day, and we are men and women, both of us, we're not immune to what's going on in the world. We can't push the red do-over button. We can't block it, so
Right.
we are reacting to what's to our reality. So you can't not say that this person has to have a high energy all the time, or otherwise they're just not going to be good for me.
Right. It doesn't work like that. It absolutely doesn't.
Yes. Okay, so let's talk about betrayal. What have you had an experiences that resulted in betrayal, and how did you actually come back from it? How did you heal from it?
There's a couple that come into mind, and I ended up hiring. We worked at a company, and I ended up hiring one of my best friends. And the backdrop is that she was my boss at a previous job, and then we kind of moved on, and then I brought her on to the new company that I had worked at, and so I ended up becoming the supervisor. She was the supervisor. We're doing our thing, and we're talking about how we're going to take over on this company, and we're going to do our thing, and we're going to shine, right? But that's not what happened. What happened was is that I elevated to a manager position, and she did not like that. So now I'm over her, and it just didn't go very well. She would not do her work. She would not do nothing. Like, she was upset. And we would have the conversation, and I'm like, okay, are you mad that I have this job? Like, why? I didn't think you can do the job. Oh, instead of saying, well, there's some pointers, let me help you, let me do this, let me do that. I just don't think you can do the job. Do you not think I can do the job, or do you want the job? You know what I mean? And so we just kind of went through that. I ended up having to let her go. She was just unruly at work, just walking around, eating. I mean, just doing just stuff that you do not do at work, right? And so I ended up having to let her go, and that ultimately ended our friendship. And that was the whole thing, that I was thinking that we were friends. I'm thinking that we've been friends for years. And I'm thinking that this woman is my friend. But really and truly, this woman, once you get above somebody, they like you when they're down here with you. I had to learn that. So when you're equal and you're together, they are okay with you. But the moment that you rise above them, they're not happy for you. They coming to get you, and they finna act a fool, right? And so that's exactly what happened. And I was betrayed. The way I got over it, it took months. It took months, because I could not, for the life of me, and I still have these moments that for the life of me, how can somebody treat me so bad when I feel like I'm doing so good to them? I feel like I'm treating them with respect. I feel like I'm doing the right thing. I feel like I'm reaching out. I feel like I'm doing all the things. But how could you do this to me? So I was able to just kind of pull back, did no longer have my friend anymore. So I had to do life alone. So you get in those alone moments. You start to journal. You start to do some research. You start to, ask friends, was there anything else that I could have done? You start to, self-evaluate. And then you start, when you get out of that moment, it may take you a while. It took me a couple of years to get over it. And so once you get out of that moment, then you now know what to look for. You now know what to do. So you don't want it to happen again. And it may happen again, right? But even at the point that it does happen again, at least you have some mechanisms, or have some boundaries. You now have vetted a little bit better. So you now know what to do. So that's kind of what happened with me.
Yeah. It's usually two things. It's usually a job or a man that
Right.
women are going to fall out about. On the job, it's you either have two types of friends. Either you're gonna have that friend that's going to despise you getting a promotion over them and gonna try to make your life hell. You know,
Right.
when in reality they're hurting themselves. They think they're hurting you, but they're hurting themselves. Or you're gonna have that friend that is trying to prove to everybody that you don't show favoritism. So they gonna go above and beyond
Right.
doing their job, doing everything right, so that nobody can accuse you of favoritism, and so that you can look good, to them, and that y'all can still maintain your friendship because they want to see you succeed. It's usually one or the other. You're gonna have both. For me, I've never want the I've had a friendship. We are making our way back, but it's still not the same. And it was a friend. We grew up together, and and what happened was she ended up dating my brother.
Mm.
And I told her not to date me.
Yeah, I've had that before.
Because I'm like, there are boundaries to this thing. When you
Right.
date a sibling of your friend's sibling, there are boundaries. And you have to understand that. And she didn't understand that this is my brother. You are my friend. He's gonna always be my brother. But we don't discuss y'all's relationship. Don't put me in that. That's a boundary. So once y'all together, then the whole thing where we used to talk about our men, that's going in. Cause you ain't
Right.
finna talk to me about my brother. We're not doing that. So because things would evolve, and when she got mad at him, she would get mad at me. Like
Right.
when she get mad at him, she cut me off. I don't want to talk to you because you gonna side. I'm like,
Yeah.
it's going on. So we ended up drifting apart, and now years later, we're trying to get it back, and I'm like, it's just not the same. Even though he's gone, he's moved on, and I moved on, and I'm like, I tried to warn you at the time. It was like 20, 30 years ago. He wasn't ready.
Right.
He's a better man now, but at the time he wasn't ready. And look here, girl, I tried to warn you
Right.
that
Right.
that he wasn't ready. I love him how he treat me, his sister, and how he gonna treat you is two different things. So
Mm-hmm.
I really tried to tell her, hey, he ain't ready. You a woman, you got a family. You got kids. He ain't ready for all of that.
Right.
So I tried to tell her, but I was like, look here, if you marry my brother, our relationship is gonna change because now it's different dynamic, and I ain't got nothing else to say. I'm giving you this warning right now, not to do
Mm-hmm.
it. He not ready, and this, that, and the other. I can't say what he gonna do. Like I wouldn't say, I wasn't saying that he was gonna be abusive or anything like that, but I
Right.
was just saying he wasn't ready to be a husband. And
Uh-huh.
so she didn't listen. She married him anyway, and it went that way. And so in all of that, it was like, every time she got mad at him,
Right.
I was blocked. I'm like, how you blocking me?
And it had nothing to
And
do
I
with
ain't
you.
nothing. One time she got mad and she put him out, and he was walking down the street, walking down the expressway. He called me, come get me. She done put me. I'm like, where you at? I'm on the highway. I was like, you mean you on the highway? You walking? He was like, yeah. So I'm like in the car. I'm going to get my pizza. So I get there to pick him up, and she mad at me. How you gonna come pick him up? And I'm like, this is still my brother.
Right.
He wouldn't let me be walking down the expressway, so I'm not
Right.
gonna let him walk down the expressway. He wouldn't let me be homeless, so I'm not gonna let him be homeless. He always got somewhere to stay up in here,
Mm-hmm.
so it's like I don't know what to tell you, man.
Right.
Because I can't stop being his sister, just because you my friend. I still love you. I really do. But this here is off limits. And I think that sometimes people don't really understand that there are boundaries,
Mm-hmm.
to every relationship. It regardless of what it is. And if you don't understand those boundaries, you can set yourself up for hurt. And so how we ended up getting past it, we started to have the conversation, and we just put it all out there. We had to put it all out there. I had to put it out there how I was feeling, and I'm like, and she put it out how she was feeling, and we're trying to rebuild it, but it's still not, it's never going to be the same, because like I'm 48, she in her 50s now. Then we was in 20s, 25
Right.
20s, and early 20, late 20s, early 30s then. But we are totally different now. So our dynamic is shifting now.
Right.
So I'm like, you can't expect the same thing like I was in my 20s. I was clinging to you,
Mm-hmm.
seeing you every day. We hanging out every day, or even if we just sitting at the house watching movies, that was it. But now in 48, baby, I can sit at my own house. I'm not leaving my house to
Right.
go and sit with you, and where I got to put on all these clothes and get cute just to
Oh,
go
yeah.
sit in somebody else's house, when I can do this at home in my little moo and my flip flops and keep it moving.
And
You
be happily comfortable.
yeah, be happy and comfortable. I said, so I'm not doing it now. We're gonna get together. We're gonna have to go out and do something for me to do all of that. But if we just gonna sit in the house, and ma'am, I'm not coming, so it's more like now we're trying to figure out, okay, what is the dynamics of our friendship now? When are
Right.
we going
Right.
to hang out and all of that stuff? And we can't get back to what it used to be.
Right.
We're two totally different people. We at the grown stage now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we have to be able to define that. And I think in order to get past any betrayal, to introduce any type of healing, number one, you got to have the conversation.
Right.
Number two, you got to be able to put all of your expectations out there. And number three, you got to be willing to compromise, to bend a little, to give a little, because nobody wants to go into a conversation and they don't get nothing. You got to
Mm-mm.
make it a win-win situation. Hear them, and y'all hear each other, and let each other know what you need from each other, and then be able to move forward with some type of plan.
Right. Absolutely.
So it's like, but it takes a lot. It really does, especially when you have history. When you have history with someone and you're trying to mend it and move forward, it's hard to let go of that history, because that history is always going to be in the back of your mind, because you
Right.
can't forget. You might forgive, but you can't forget. So it's still kind of like, if we tiptoeing on
Right.
eggshells
Right.
around each other, because now we really don't know. um so which brings me to the next question, was when you do experience that betrayal, how do you balance forgiveness with protecting your peace and your boundaries?
I'm glad that you brought that up, because a lot of people, when there's the betrayal, or they feel like they betrayed, I think that what happens is a lot of people just ghost and they just leave, and I'm the type of person that I'm willing to have the conversation. But if you're not mature enough and you can't have the conversation, then, and we can't compromise, just like you mentioned, and we can't get past this, then I'm not the problem. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not the problem. And a lot of times people just ghost you. They don't want to talk about it, or you don't even know what has happened. And while I was doing my little research and just talking about friendships, when I did that episode of friendships, I learned that a lot of people were being ghosted. They just up and left, and the person doesn't even know what happened. They
Mhm.
absolutely don't even know what they did. They don't come back and talk to you. And then some people have the attitude of, what you did. No, I don't. I need you to articulate it. Don't leave me guessing. Don't have me guessing and trying to figure out I say something wrong to you? Did I offend you? You don't let me know. If you're not mature enough to have the conversation with me, then we don't need to be friends. Okay? Like, I want some mature friends. I want some people that I can sit down and talk to. I want some people to say, you know what, that hurt my feelings. You know what? Okay, I'm sorry. What can I do better? Or what have you? But if you got to be able to say that, and I think that's very, very important, being able to do that.
Absolutely. I think ghosting is the most immature thing that you can ever do. Ever. Now, I'm not saying that there isn't a time where you do need to just ghost some people and just be like, I'm not fooling with you. But in reality, when we're talking about friendship, somebody that you know,
Right.
that you vetted and you spent time with, I don't understand the whole I'm just gonna stop talking to you and whatever, you know what you did. How? If I'm just being me and you being you, how am I supposed to know that I hurt you?
Right. I have a couple of examples of that, because I have one friend that is a Trump supporter, against all the holidays, the ethnic holidays, and all of that. And we've been friends for years, and had the conversation. But what happened is that she deleted her page. So because we're friends, I was like, did I offend you? Did I say something wrong? People can have their own views on whatever it is, and I'm fine with it. It's not about arguing. I want you to be a, whatever, what have you. But the thing is that I called her and I said, hey, were you offended? She said, no, we're cool and your daughter's cool and this and that. But reality is, she never friended us back. When she entered her page and just deleted us. So evidently you were offended, and you didn't have the balls or the galls to say, you know what, you hurt my feelings, or I didn't like this or didn't like that. And you can't have a debate, or you can't have a conversation. I've had another time when we, hung out, and I had a friend that we were going to happy hours, we would hang out, we would go to bars and do all this stuff. Yet the next thing I know is I go check on her and I'm blocked. So she didn't, I don't know how they do it. There's a way that you can not necessarily block the person, because you can still see their friend, but it says add friend, but you're not blocked. So I don't know how they do it, but you can tell that you're not on their page anymore. So she didn't have the conversation with me. She just left. And I don't know what happened, and like you said, friendships end and the seasons end. And I just took it like that, because like I said, I'm too old. I'm 48, just like you. I'm too old to be trying to figure out what happened. If you can't come and talk to me, then we just don't need to be friends. That's period.
Exactly.
Point blank.
I tell my friends all the time, baby, I can't remember what happened yesterday. So I'm gonna need you to talk to me.
Exactly.
When it's something, because that's one of the reasons why I tell people that I don't lie, because I ain't gonna remember what I said. And when
Right.
you lie, you're gonna have to remember the lie that you told to cover up the lie. And you got to remember too much. But when you mentioned about, you picked up the phone and you called her trying to have the conversation, and she acted like everything is fine, I can't. That's one of my pet peeves. It's like, not only will you not have the conversation, but then when I try and call you, because my discernment telling me something is wrong, and I try to come talk to you, you still gonna lie and say
Right.
nothing is wrong. Oh, we good, such and such and such. Like the friend that I tell you about, one day she unfriended me and blocked me on social media too. I didn't
Right.
even know it, but like I said, you went to look for him. I'm like, dog, I can't find you. And then when we made up, you wanna unblock me and resend me a friend request. No, that ain't what we doing. We ain't doing all this. We ain't doing all this back and forth, because if you were that upset to block me, because you can't, you having a adult temper tantrum.
Right. Right.
That's really what it is. It's an adult temper tantrum. I can't even say the word right. You
Right.
doing all of this but you don't want to have the conversation. You having the conversation with somebody, because we women. Don't get
Right.
twisted. We gonna vent to somebody. You done told
Somebody.
somebody, just like I done told somebody that you pissed me off and I'm upset. You done told somebody, but you can't have the conversation with me, especially when I come to you and trying to address it.
Right. And I could not believe I couldn't, and like I said, these are people that think that they're your friends. Like, this woman has done a lot of stuff for my daughter when she was young.
Mhm.
Like, we've helped each other. I helped her get a job. She helped buy Christmas gifts for my daughter when I didn't have any money. Like, we have been there, you know. I helped her when I took over her business when her mom passed away. Like, but you cannot have this conversation, and yet you just live in some, I don't know what kind of world you live in, but to go ahead and, you know, block. And it's not like we just had this argument. It wasn't like that. It was just like this is my view and this is your view. You know what I mean? And a lot of things, a lot of times people on social media don't like the views that you offer. You know what I'm saying? And if you can't handle it, then you don't need to be posting on social media, you
Right.
know? So
Absolutely. It's the lack of emotional intelligence. Most people they think avoidance is peace. I'm protecting my peace. No, baby, you avoiding tough conversations.
right.
You're avoiding accountability. You know, you're avoiding listening to somebody else's perspective. Somebody else's perspective can help you.
Right.
Maybe you ain't got to agree with it, you know, but you just be open to listen to it and be listen to understand. Right. I can understand your viewpoint. Don't mean I have to agree with it and adapt it as my own. You
Right.
know, but
Exactly.
we can have the conversation. But these are the type of people that they can't even have a debate on social media.
Right.
I hate debating on social media because the first thing they gonna do is they gonna start insulting you.
Right.
Now
Right.
all of a sudden you running all type of stereotypes. I was having a conversation with one guy on social media or it probably was a woman, and then all of a sudden it was, I bet you got 5 kids by multiple baby daddies and you live, and I'm like, bruh, I ain't even got no kids, first of all. I'm like, so you just throwing all of these stereotypes out at me, throwing out these insults because I disagree with you?
Right. Right.
Or I disagree with the original poster. We ain't even arguing with the original poster. You argue with me on my comment because of what I said. But you going back for now, all of a sudden you insulting me. I bet you this. I bet you on welfare. I bet you getting food stamp. Bro, I ain't never seen a food stamp a day in my life.
Right.
When, you know, growing up. So I'm like, y'all throw out all of these stereotypes because you lack emotional intelligence and you cannot handle somebody having a difference of opinion with you. And I'm like, and that's not peace. You sometimes conflict is going to happen. Conflict resolution is a real skill. Conflict is natural.
Say that again.
Right. I'm like, it's natural. You need conflict. You know, you can't always avoid conflict. In conflict, the presence of conflict does not mean that somebody is wrong or that they're wrong for you.
Yeah.
Conflict can be healthy.
And
It's supposed to be healthy.
she said that I just want to be happy. I just want everybody to be joy. I just want to have fun conversation. Look, it's not always going to be like that. It's just not. It's just not.
Sweetie, roses look good from afar, but they stink up
Right.
close. So
Right.
it's not gonna always be a bed of roses. You know, we have real life that we have to contend with. You know, we have real people that we have to contend with. That's why I tell people all the time, wholeness is a journey. If you ever get to the point where you think you're completely, totally healed, it's time to go on and be with the Lord.
Right. Because
As
we're always
long
got something to
as
work
we
on.
are in this world and dealing with humans who are imperfect, broken, and all of that, carrying on baggage from everywhere, you're gonna have something to heal from. Because
Right.
because that's just life, you know, and people are imperfect, right? So what are some practical ways that we can actually initiate conversations around expectations in friendships, especially after conflict or disappointment?
Well, the person, like, it takes two, right? So it does take two people, but if the person is really um, willing to have the conversation, I love what one of my friends had said. Her name is Tracy Reddy. I love what she said, and she said, "Have a reconciliation plan."
Mm.
I love that, right? Have a reconciliation plan, because once we have this spat or, this disagreement, or we, get upset with each other, let's go back to our reconciliation plan and let's start there. Because in that plan, and like I said, you got to have these conversations, because we just willy-nilly and we just do these friendships and we just think that, oh, everything is hunky-dory, and then until it happens, now what? I don't want to talk to you and you don't want to talk to me, and now we just ghosting each other, or we just not talking. So you have to have this plan on how you're going to get back into the reconciliation. Or do I let you go a week and then we come back together, and talk about it, have a conversation? Do I, not let you go, a couple of days, and then we just come back and we agree to this plan that we have, and hey, no matter what, we're going to come back and talk about it. We're going to come back to the table. We'll let each other, cool off, or, think about what we need to talk about, but have this plan. And I think that's the good piece about it, of being able to come back and heal or fix the problem in that friendship.
Absolutely. I like that, the reconciliation plan. That sounds really very, very good in theory. But like you said, it does take two to come together. You have to be, to me, the foundation is always going to be communication style, right?
Right.
Because that communication style is going to really determine whether or not you are dealing with somebody who is healthy or on the road to being healthy, open to healthy and wholeness, versus somebody who is really truly still broken and still speaking from that broken inner child that is within
Right.
their hurt and from their experiences. Because sometimes if you're dealing with that type of person, reconciliation, restoration sometimes is likely not going to be possible, because
Right.
they're not going to hear anything. But the one thing that I would say is facts over feelings, because we can be so high in our emotions that we come into a conversation with all of these superlatives, like you always do this and you never, and all of that, when in reality, bring the facts.
Right.
Bring the facts. When you did such and such, it
Uh-huh.
made me feel such and such. You
Right.
know,
Right.
and I give that framework even with my employees. Come with the facts. Say a specific scenario. Don't be with you always and you never. And I feel no. Because always and never is really truly not true.
Right.
Because you
Right.
really probably can only account maybe one situation if somebody really asks you, well, give me a specific example. I don't
Yeah.
know right now off the top of my head. Well, how you gonna say always then? Because if
My
it's
friend,
always, baby, you should have 3, 4 examples ready to run them off.
exactly.
If
My
it's
friend
always,
always says,
you know,
come with 3 examples. What's 3 examples? Give me three
right,
examples. And I'll be like,
right.
ooh, wee, he got me. Yeah, but yeah.
Yeah, don't bring out the social worker in me that's always documenting. Okay, on March 23rd, 2002, this is what had happened, or something like that. So it's like you have to, and another thing is, in addition to having the facts over the feelings, is stay in the moment. Oftentimes, when you do get a chance to sit down and have a conversation with somebody, if you're one of those people who got all your stuff, like if I call a conversation, baby, I got it all written down. I got the facts. I got what I got what you done did, how you made me feel. I'm ready. So
Yeah.
so when they come into me now, they feeling like, well, I ain't got nothing, so let me make up something. No. Stay on topic.
See?
I have a friend. Well, if you come to her and she call a conversation, or she call a meeting, we need to discuss such and such. If in that meeting you try to flip it and be like, well, I need to tell you about this, she be like, hold up, this is my meeting. You should have called your own meeting if you had something to say.
Right. Now you want to bring up everything else.
Now you want to bring up everything. So my thing is, stick to the subject. Do not allow things to fester.
Right.
Because if then you become that pressure pot syndrome, where you just let things build up, and then you're about to burst. Address things when they happen. Because the longer you let people slide with stuff, they're gonna feel like their behavior is acceptable.
Right.
And then you're gonna feel like your needs are not being met, or that they're not considering you in their actions and behavior. But if you start addressing things, you'll give them a chance to correct it, correct the behavior or adhere to your boundaries. Because, like I said, people are still human. And if you've been allowing things for months or maybe sometimes years, and now you want to create this boundary, it's going to be hard for people to adhere to that, because we are human. Change, nobody likes change but babies, like my boss said. So it's gonna give them the grace to make the changes. But if you pile everything on them at one time, nobody likes that.
No.
Nobody wants to feel like they got 10 things that they need to correct in order to make you happy.
I'm like,
you gotta give me one at a time.
I need you to sandwich that, okay?
Yeah.
Now, don't act like I'm just a big bad wolf.
Be like on the job. Okay, which one is your number one priority? Because you ain't finna get all 10 of these. So pick one that you want me to work on or something like that. So you have to be able to address things when they happen and not be in it. And if you are afraid to have a conversation with somebody, you really need to question the depth and the validity of your friendship. Is that truly your friend? Because if I'm your friend and I can't tell you when you're wrong, if I'm your friend and I can't tell you when you've hurt me, are we really friends?
And that's what I'm talking about. You go along, you've been with this person for so long, and I mean, years go by and you're really thinking that this is your friend. But until the moment that something happens and you can't talk to me, then you realize, okay, is this really my friend? But years have passed by. Years have gone and you're just thinking that this person is your friend. And then now you have to really discern or really reevaluate, okay, you know what? I know that they have been friends, but you know what? I got to go back and I got to go back in my Rolodex and remember, oh, you know what? This person said this or this person did that. You know what? They may not be my friend. I was overlooking these things, you know? And so you do have to go back and reevaluate those friendships.
Yeah, and just like there's a honeymoon phase in romantic relationships, there's a honeymoon phase in friendship. You know, but when the toughness come in, when it's time to be test, when the test comes up, that's really when you're going to see, is this really my friend? Because as long as we just brunching and hanging out and girl tripping, we good.
Yeah.
But as soon as something else comes into the mix and feelings get hurt and emotions get high, you're going to see exactly where you stand with that person. And you have to decide, like you said, in that moment, decide, is this a friendship worth salvaging, or is this something that we're going to have to part ways? And to me, if you've been spending that type of time together, it's worth exploring and worth really seeking a resolution, even if it doesn't resolve to your benefit. You both may decide, okay, we just gonna have to go our separate ways, you know. But I think that anytime, if I've spent any amount of time with somebody, it's at least worth the conversation.
Right.
It's at least worth us really sitting down and hashing out, where do we go from here? Where did we go wrong? And things like that. So our final question is, what advice would you give to somebody who's healing from friend related trauma? What are some first steps that you would encourage them to take?
You know, one of the first steps is be okay in your alone season. You know, sometimes you just don't need to be around a whole lot of people. And I know it's hard because you're so used to being with your friends or hanging out here or going there, but you got to sit with yourself. And I think that that is the first and utmost thing that you need to do. You got to sit with yourself and really figure out what it is that you want, how you want to perceive, you know, just like we talked about, what are going to be your boundaries? How are you going to vet people in your next friendships? How are you really willing to heal and start to do some things on your own? Start going out, you know, start going out by yourself, go to the movies, go to dinner by yourself, you know, do these things that you want to do, but do them by yourself. I remember a time when I didn't have anybody, you know, I love Prince. I love me some Prince, honey. But I didn't have anybody to go with. Nobody wanted to go. And so y'all know my dating chronicles. I've been through dating chronicles for years. I've been telling them stories on Facebook, but I didn't have anybody to go with. And I just went by myself. And when I tell you, that was the most fun I ever had by myself. I got on stage with Prince, or the so-called Prince. I got on stage. I mean, I would have never probably done that with my friend, but I was able to be free. I was able to do all the things that I wanted to do. So those are some of the things that I think that you should do. Start to be alone, start to do things on your by yourself, and then just really have the hard conversations. I think that so many times that we don't know what to say. Now we got Chat GPT. I mean, you just talk to Chat GPT and say, hey, look, if you can't afford a therapist, hey, I'm feeling this. What should I do? How should I handle this situation? Be able to receive the feedback. And if you have somebody that's close or you have a therapist, go seek help. Go seek help. If you have the funds and the means to do so, go get a therapist.
What you said exactly. And one thing that I will add is you need to analyze the relationship
Yeah.
and be unbiased. Tell what you did to um and
Right.
be able to really truly sit down and analyze the relationship. And sometimes that may take a minute, because at first we're going to always be pointing the finger at somebody else. Well, they did this and they did this and this that and the other. Okay, when you get all of that out, what did you do?
Mhm.
What
Mhm.
did you not do?
Right.
What did you not communicate? And things like that. And like you said, be willing to have the conversation, and then also allow yourself time to grieve. Because
Mhm.
when you disconnect from good friendships, especially those that have lasted for years and years, that person has really become like family to you.
Mhm.
So and it can feel like grieving when it ends, because now you have to imagine life without that person. Depending on how interconnected you all were, you have to begin to do life without that person. And so it's kind of like a divorce, a friendship divorce. We're
Right.
going through a divorce, so we're going through this grieving process. We're going through having to, like you said, now do things by ourselves. Or some people don't want to do things by themselves. They just become loners and stuck in the house, and they not happy about it. It's some people that can be in the house, they just introverted, and they can be happy about it. But if you ain't happy about it, you still ain't got no hobbies, you don't do nothing in the house, then you're gonna have to learn to get out and
Right.
socialize and be open to meeting new people, and then taking the time to get to know new people. And so your first encounter, to me, when you're getting out, it's just really exploring your
Mhm.
hobbies, exploring things that you like to do. And you might meet people along the way. Don't mean that they gonna become your BFF next day. Stop
Right.
expecting that. Just enjoy the moment, with them, and enjoy the conversation with them. And then also be open enough to share a part of you that you can allow somebody to truly get to know you, your authentic person.
Right.
Not who you want to be, not who you trying to pretend to be, or who you want to be in the future. This is what I want. Who you are right now. Allow people the opportunity to get to know you. I tell and something I do for myself, even though, because I'm right now starting to get back into dating, I have this list of, like, I ask myself, Indiana, what would you want them to know about you?
Right.
So ask yourself that, what would you like for somebody to know about you? What is one thing that, as a friend, you need somebody to know about you? And start there. And how can you be more open and vulnerable to share that with somebody? If this is the core of who you are, be willing to share that. And then the last thing is embrace the new beginning. If you need closure and you can't get it, like you said, you might need to go to therapy, so you get
Yes.
that thing out.
Yeah.
And I don't believe in needing closure, baby, because I'll write a letter and write you out real quick. In my little journal, and because once I put dear such and such, and I get the writing and it all come out, by the time I hit period, in the end and close that book, baby. It's done, over with, out of sight, out of mind, and I am moving on. So to me, that is a beautiful way that you can get closure. If you don't have it, just write a letter and act like you're talking to that person, and write out everything that you need to say or that you wanted to say, and let go. And like you said, identify what you actually want going forward. What type of friendship, what type of associate, what type of relationship do you want? Because there are some amazing women out there that you can build a friendship with. I hate to hear women say, "Oh, women are messy." No, you messy.
Right.
Because if all you attracting is messy people,
Then
you
that
might want to
means
look
you
at them other
messy.
3 fingers that's pointing back at you, ma'am. Because
Right.
misery loves company.
Right.
you
And
know,
I like the fact that you said, and I love, and I haven't gotten one, but I love the fact that you write the journals, because that allows people to have some journal prompts, because a lot of times people don't know what questions to ask themselves, and so you're just kind of like lost. You want to handle the situation, you need to fix it, but you don't know the questions to ask yourself. So I'll get with India and get those journals, because you do need to know what questions to ask yourself.
you absolutely truly do. And it's okay. You're for the most part, ask yourself, what did you learn about yourself during the course of
Mm-hmm.
that relationship?
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes we don't even know what we value or what we need until we're not getting it.
Right.
Until it's no longer a possibility. And for some, that's not beating you up. That's okay. We're human, because a lot of times we didn't grow up voicing what we wanted and what we needed. We grew
Right.
up we 48, so we grew up in the children I seen and not heard era.
That's right.
And we grew up in there. You better not ask mama no questions, because it's because I said so.
Because I said so.
That's it. So you was left with nothing. You didn't have no answer to nothing. So you really had to figure some things out.
Listen,
But
I was in the back of the Cosmo books trying to look at those questions and see if they could answer any of my questions that I had. Okay. Listen.
right. Or either you get to school and you finally get that teacher who won't have the conversation with you, that's gonna let you talk, baby. I will give you an earful. I had so many questions. My teacher was like, "Baby, what's going on?" I was like, "Mama won't talk to me. She won't tell me nothing. It's always because I said so, or get out my face." You know,
Yep.
Mama didn't have
Yep.
time, because I was a very inquisitive child. I had questions about everything. Why you got to do that, Mama? But I'm already, and then no, get out my face. I ain't got
Right.
time. Listen to
Right.
that.
You're asking too many questions. Go sit down
You
somewhere.
asking too many questions. So before you get out of here, I really enjoyed this conversation, Felicia. Tell us what you have going on and how can we connect with you and work with you.
Well, I just became the coach, career coach, transition coach, helping women with their confidence, helping women turn their knowledge into money. So I focus in on digital marketing and other ways that they can kind of take their knowledge and their expertise into money, or being able to focus on their career, if they're wanting to kind of get into entrepreneurship, how to start that process and what you need to do and the things that you need to know. And I take the Maven framework, and I'm super excited about the Maven framework, because basically, and I give a brief of it, but basically the Maven stands for, the M is mindset, the A is for action, and the V is for visibility, the E is for elevate, and then an execution, and then the N is for networking. So I take all of that, break it down for you, and that's how we make things work, and that's where the magic comes from. So you can find me on TikTok, and you can find me on Facebook. On TikTok, Felicia F. Ferrell, and that's my handle. On Facebook, it is Felicia Ferrell.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining me. And I definitely love that, Maeve. I'm an acronym girl. I love me some good acronyms.
Okay.
I pretty much have an acronym for everything because I don't remember stuff. So that helps me remember. And And also, if you are on your healing journey or you're just starting your healing journey, please go to my website at indiewrights.com and check out a couple of healing books I have. It's the Embrace Your Healing. That one is takes you through examining your life in the 6 quadrants of your life, from your relationships, your career, your family, your mental and your spiritual well-being. It helps you examine yourself and ask you those tough questions that you need to ask yourself to discover if you really need to heal in those areas. Then I have Thrive, which is for people who've been through a lot of trauma. It helps you to begin to voice your story and walk and practice forgiveness, release some blame, get that closure you need, and then also turn your pain into purpose. And then I also have The Art of Letting Go, which is really about forgiveness, because a lot of my audience was like, I need a journal just straight for forgiveness. So it's really about forgiveness. You have to go through your definition of forgiveness and what it means to you, going through all of those myths. And then it takes you on this 30-day journaling prompt skill, so you can really identify what forgiveness looks like in your day-to-day life, and identify things that when you were forgiven, because sometimes we forget that people have forgiven us.
Right.
We want to hold our forgiveness tight because we've been betrayed. But you've been forgiven too. You didn't hurt some people too. So you really have to walk through that. And they're all faith-based. So your faith is going to be the center. So those are my top 3 healing journals. So you can check those out. Again, my website is www.indiewrights.com. So definitely get with Felicia, because career transitions, your confidence got to be up here. It really do. So that is so important, and I like that you're doing that. When I first started my career, my first business idea, I wanted to help people with career transitions. That was my very first thing, because that was what my degree was in. It was in career counseling. So that is what I wanted to do, help along that. But I just kind of ended up in this mental wellness space.
Yeah.
I feel bamboozled, but
you're right where you need to be.
I'm here, but it's still some type of transition, but I ended up being here now. So definitely check her out, and give us your website again, Felicia.
So I'm just on TikTok. I do have a stand store. So my stand store is standstore.com/digital influence consulting. So
Yes, and she has some amazing t-shirts. So y'all make sure y'all check, which reminds me, I gotta put my order in, because I saw some things that I wanted, because I love me a good graphic tee. And the summertime is coming up. So thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for watching, and those of you who will catch the replay, I hope that this blesses you as it blessed us. And thank you, and have a good night.
You have been listening to Journey to Wholeness, brought to you by Indie Wrights, a spiritual growth and development company that helps you write your way to success and wholeness in every area of your life. We specialize in books and journals that promote mental wellness and Christian growth. Our journals provide inspirational articles, motivational quotes, biblical guidance, writing prompts to release your feelings, fears, and thoughts, as well as strategies for success to tackle your goals and pursue your purpose. Visit our website and join our mailing list at www.indiewrights.com to learn more.